All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Lucky episode number 17. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. Um, I'm Equidez17, and this is 17 and some change. I'm going to try to give you my 2 cents. Um, I hope everybody's doing well. Um, I am going to, well, first thing I'm going to say is that. Um, it had come to my attention recently that I mean I, I knew that this was the case, but somebody recommended recently like I cut the pauses and the filler words from my videos before I post them, and that could save the audience some time and maybe some frustration. I had considered doing that, but the purpose of my podcast aren't just it's not just to get a message across, it's also to interact with an audience like a human, and for the audience to feel like they're listening to a human. And I just wanted to keep the authenticity in that regard as high as possible. So I decided I keep my natural pauses and things like that. So that's what that is. Um Obviously, like, viewers can come from anywhere, so I don't know um what type of temperatures y'all are dealing with. But in parts of the U.S., there are heat advisories. There's kind of a heat wave crisis type of thing. Um, it's pretty hot here. It's in the 90s, upper 90s. I think freezing a towel is good, and making sure you have ice and you're staying hydrated and stuff like that. And thank goodness for ACs. It's funny, like I realized yesterday, like the city is more quiet the hotter it is out. Everybody just becomes like bogged down, right? Everything kind of just moves slower um, when it's really hot out. And it wasn't as loud yesterday when I was listening to the city and thinking about that. Um, it was 126 degrees in one part of the country yesterday, and it was over 120 in a few places. Um, and I don't know, that is, you talk about temperatures in the 90s being dangerous. There's a huge difference between within 20 degrees. There's a huge difference between 71 and 91. Um, and so there's a huge difference if you're struggling with 96. Um, and some places are 126. I mean, that's that's dangerous multiple uh, in multiple levels, on multiple fronts. Um, I guess there was a huge, like, 8 point something earthquake yesterday, somewhere near Russia, um, which resulted in a tsunami. And every time, like, there's heat waves or like world events or whatever, like heat waves, um, you know, global global warming gets brought up, and I'm not an expert on global warming. Um, I don't think. I mean, and it's not just not being an expert, um, there are things that I'm not an absolute expert at that I could offer more of an opinion on. It's so politicized. Um, I've heard, you know, uh, many conflicting reports or various conflicting reports in regards to global warming. Um, you know, and I use the word politicized, but prematurely because a point that I really wanted to hone in on is that because it's a politicized topic, I don't think truth is easy to hash out. Um, I've heard people talk about how it used to be uh, climate warming changed to climate change um, in terminology within the past couple decades. Prior to that, they were warning about ice ages. And so the argument is that climate is constantly changing. And I've also, it's funny because, I mean, it's not really funny, but you watch a billow of smoke, of thick, dark smoke emitting from uh, a factory, and it looks significant. It kind of looks massive, the amount of smoke that they can produce, and you see it 24/7 rising into the atmosphere, and you scale that globally, nationally, globally. I know there's a lot of pockets in the US and in the world, of course, that aren't populated. But I mean, just scale that. And it's hard to picture, it's hard to imagine that that cannot be affecting the atmosphere, right? I've also heard claims that all of the human um, activity in the world doesn't equal one eruption from a supervolcano. And so I don't, um, yeah, so I don't know. That's what I know. And you you want you want clean energy. You want clean energy, and you want energy in general. So take that for what it's worth. Um, so apparently any new diet gives you diarrhea. Um, if y'all are thinking about switching diets, I think pretty much anything you switch to will come with some diarrhea, whether that's going to all meat or whether that's going vegan or cutting out X, Y, and Z. I think any major dietary change at some point or another within the first couple weeks ends up in diarrhea. So enjoy that. Um, there are so many diets that exist. Um, yeah, so many diets with the low carbs and the Atkins and the vegans and the pescatarians and the vegetarians and the meats only and the limit the limit the glucose or the what are they, the gluten free or the and like I've done different stuff with diets and stuffs before. um I I did the vegan thing one time. Yeah. I had watched a documentary that convinced me that um, because of how our teeth were arranged and how our fingers are arranged for like digging and peeling, and how our intestines are large, like the the documentary convinced me that like we're actually optimized to not eat meat. Like we're optimized to eat strictly plants. And this was, I'm trying to think of how long back this was so I could kind of justify my nativity. Um Insofar as I allowed one documentary to kind of change my diet um for a year. I think this was like in 2018. Um, but yeah, I did the vegan thing for like 9 months ish, um, give or take, and it was, I could not stop losing weight. I think I lost like 40 pounds, and that was continuous. And I I would I would look at like squirrels and they would begin to look appetizing. Like I would be watching like I'd be watching like National Geographic, and I'm like, yo, that lion that lion got himself a good meal, right? Like, yo, look at that lion's supper. Like, yo, give me some of that shit. And so I knew I had to go back to eating meat and stuff like that. Um, and then, but so I tried doing like a pescatarian in the meantime, like before I went from vegan to like fully back to like normal person eating, consumer American. Um, and so like I did the pescatarian thing for a little while, and then when you're doing pescatarian, you gotta worry about like metals and shit like that. If you're eating tuna every day, you gotta worry about like mercury or mercury or whatever. And so but then eventually I switched. I went back to like a normal American diet or whatever. I think it's so much more beneficial to like cook as opposed to like the more you can cook, the more whole foods you can get, the more you can cook, the better off you are. I just recently um kind of switched my diet again because I quit smoking cigarettes after 15 years. Um I quit smoking cigarettes, and um unlike when I went vegan, the opposite happened. I started gaining a lot of weight. So I said, all right, I'm gaining a lot of weight. I'm gonna just cut out dairy and stuff like that. I mean, most people are lactose intolerant anyways, to some degree. They just continue to eat and consume dairy. I forget the number. There was an astronomical number. Um, there were populations that bordered 90% of people being lactose intolerant. Um, but like I know I've read that it contributes to like bloating and like there's a lot of calories like and so I was like, all right, I'll knock that off. I'll stop drinking sugary drinks for a little bit, um, and maybe like reduce carbs, especially like late at night. And then I realized I found myself like that pretty much basically leaves you with protein. And so I'm out here and like I just caught myself in like this super high, almost protein only diet. And I don't know. So I'm just gonna see what happens in the next month and shit like that. So yeah, we'll see. Um, and then yeah. So I guess there's a video going around. There's a video that went viral. These dudes, they're fighting each other or whatever. And the thing that I want to talk about with that whole situation is the thumbnail that I saw with that chick who got KO'd or whatnot. Bro, that's that type of shit's disturbing. You know, like when people get knocked out, it's not a good look. Like it's ugly. Like it's really ugly when somebody gets knocked the F out. And when when it's a pretty girl, I don't know if she was pretty, like really. I'm not commenting on that. I mean, like, but like that makes it even more worse. Like even not even pretty, just like a female in general. Like seeing a female knocked out is like really really tough to like see. You know what I mean? Um, it's a tough sight to look at, and everything that I'm gonna say moving forward, um, I'm gonna say with the assumed caveat that I fully believe that if you're dating a female, it is um, incumbent upon you uh, to protect her if need be. Um, and so, but like with that being said, it's good to have as a female an ability to fight, and it's good as a man if you're interested in you know longevity or survival or power couples or just like for common sense. Like it's good to have a partner who knows how to fight. And um what I mean by that is I'm not even talking offensively. I'm not even talking defensively. I'm talking about situational awareness. Um, if you as a female, or if your female knows how to fight, then you or she has. If somebody knows how to fight, if you know how to fight, you have situational awareness. Like that's the most important part about knowing how to fight is like knowing where you're susceptible to getting punched before any of that even happens, you know. And um yeah, so for at the very least for situational awareness. And also, you know, it's would be nice to uh as a it's funny, I keep naturally wanting to like address the men first and foremost. Right, but like as a woman, like you want to have a backbone and no, not a big ego. You want to be able to de-escalate, and as a man, that's you want that too, and you want to be dating that. And but like men specifically, y'all need to really like work on these egos. Like, and I'm just saying that in in regards to how with men it can get physical, right? I mean, I think the entire nation has ego issues. Bro, is that an Amazon truck backing up? It sounds like the most ew. It sounds like not. It doesn't sound like chalk. It doesn't sound like scratching a chalkboard, but it gives the same. It gives the same vibe. Um, but yeah, so everybody needs to chill out on ego a little bit. That's the bottom line. And you know, alcohol doesn't help. And you know, I stopped drinking alcohol October 2024. And so I heard a lot of the younger generation is doing the same thing. Not doing the same thing, but like a lot of the younger generation, they don't do alcohol. Like they don't mess with alcohol like the older generations did, and I think that's good. Alcohol is so stupid. I'm pretty sure I talked about it before. Like, um, because now I'm just thinking like I'm thinking as a business person, as somebody who like owns a brand and stuff like that. Like I'm involved. I am involved, and I'm going to be involved in multiple avenues. But I don't, and I'm hesitant to say something that I'm going to be pigeon-toed to because I can see myself like gassing it up in my head. Like I could see myself like designing something that would be like really dope in regards to alcohol, um, whether it's a beer or a spirit. Um, I actually worked at a alcohol place for once upon a time. But like I don't think that's something that I'm ever gonna delve into, promote or anything like that. Like um yeah, I don't think you'll ever see an alcohol brand from me. And then so that's all the things on here. That's all the things I have on the sticky note. Oh, wait, did I miss? I did. what do I have to say about him? Okay, so that could kind of tie in. I use the AI agent a little bit more, and I've had more success with it since last episode. I have had it format successfully a couple books for me, um, and create a table of contents, and that was pretty cool. Um, And then the other thing I have here is Hulk Hogan, and it's interesting that I put that because it's interesting that I put those two topics next to each other because I recently just had a conversation that um, tied in those two topics, and so Hulk Hogan's dead, and and so I want to say R.I.P. But like I also because he was a human and stuff like that. But I also want to say like I wasn't a Hogan fan. I'm not like a Hogan supporter. I know he didn't sell his moves. I don't, and he did that thing with the Undertaker or whatever. That's an interesting story to look up. And of course, the elephant in the room in regards to Hogan and stuff like that. And so, like, I'm certainly not a Hogan sycophant. I don't even really, um, he was iconic. He's a character that adds to the WWE. But anyways, um, he the fact so he died, and then AI is improving, and we already have we already have avatars, living avatars, and because it's when people die recently, like the past few celebrities that have died, and I don't know if this is gonna carry over to like real humans, but like the past few celebrities, and I don't know if it's because we live in a day and age of the internet. But like the past few celebrities that have died, I found myself wanting to and or expecting to be able to hear from them about their death. Like they're gonna like talk about it like on social media, like what happened, how they feel about it. And it's just like a weird ex desire slash expectation that I've had over the past couple celebrities or past few celebrities that have died. I'm like, oh, see what he has to say about the fact that he just died. And you know, and it sobers you up for half a second, like, oh shit, people fucking die. People die. Like it just reminds you, not that that's not a topic I don't think about far too frequently, um, just by nature of being a philosopher. But he, so we have these avatars, and AI is improving, and its contextual memory is improving, and um, its personality development is improving, and this is an angle that I didn't think of, but we'll see a day where like an avatar is so well programmed on a person that it's essentially operating as that person postmortem. And you'll have Tupac concerts. I think we've seen holograms and stuff like that. Robin Williams coming back and doing a stand up, like a new stand up, but you'll have like old musicians making new songs and old comics making new jokes. And um, You'll have these people that like 10 years after their death, they're still interacting with the world via their digital avatars, and that's going to be wild. That's going to be absolutely wild. I wasn't trying to talk about that after I talked about the fight video. I was trying to talk about the fight video last because it segues into the Q&A. The Q&A is on MMA, more specifically the parts of the martial arts that I have engaged in directly. So in high school, I wrestled. I wrestled in high school. Um, 2 years JV, no big deal, but it's still noteworthy. Um, I was pretty good actually. One of the coaches said if he had done this for 4 years, oh my goodness. But I did jujitsu at a gym for about 2.5, close to 3 years. Never got my blue belt. I do feel kind of sandbagged, but we'll kind of get into that during the Q&A. Um, I had a summer's worth of private boxing lessons, and I still hit the bag as a hobby. And I have 6 months worth of Taekwondo. So I have a little a little bit of martial arts experience. Um, and so I wanted to do the Q&A on that topic. I like doing Q&As on things that I'm familiar with and stuff like that. And so that's what it's gonna be. And now typically what I would do in the past is I would have Chat GPT formulate questions for me one at a time, and I would answer them one at a time. Um, and then I would present that to you guys. And I still did that on question number one for today. But what I found is that it kind of eliminates the spontaneity. Um, Being prompt by a question automatically allows me um, to come up with an answer. Like I don't need to pre-record. Like I don't need to pre-think about what my answers to questions are going to be. I might need to pre-think about what I'm gonna say in general without any prompts. But if I'm getting prompted by questions, like I could just riff on that. And so, like I said, the first question I kind of like put down an answer to, but then after that, I was like, I'm just gonna kind of riff on these. And so the first question it did ask me, it said, as someone who wrestled in high school and later trained jujitsu, what's the biggest difference you felt between the two? And to me, the biggest difference is positioning, right? And in wrestling, your only goals revolve around uh, not getting not getting put on your back and putting the other person on his back or her back. And so like your objective is to pin the other person, and you pin the other person by both shoulders on the mat. And so in wrestling, you never go to your back. You do anything not to go to your back. Like you lose essentially if you go to your back. Like if the person's on top and you go to your back, you lose. And in jujitsu, fighting from your back is like 50%, like, or you know, uh, is like 50% of where you're gonna be. It's maybe a little bit less, like 50% if you're simplifying it, but you spend a large portion of time like fighting from your back in jujitsu. And it's actually so that's the opposite. And then it's you do everything you can to avoid being on your stomach in jujitsu because that's the easiest place for you to get choked out, and that's the 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 least effective place to defend yourself from. If somebody wants to punch you in the back of the head, you're really defenseless um, from that position. So that's a complete opposite uh, like where you want to be, and that's kind of tough to get used to. Like I would find myself going belly up often because or belly down often because all my stand-ups that I knew from wrestling started with belly down, right? So I was able to power my way back up to the feet or hit like a nice little switch starting from, what they would call it turtle position in jujitsu, but it wasn't necessarily turtle position in wrestling, but it was the most similar thing, hands and knees. Um, so you go from belly, you can get to hands and knees from belly. Like there's a technique, like there's a specific way to get to hands and knees from belly that it you can have a ton of weight on your back and you can get to hands and knees from belly with this specific technique. And so that's what I would do. And I got really good at defending chokes because of that and stuff like that. And I would do like unorthodox, like I would roll and stuff like that. But yeah, don't don't take my advice. Like I mean, that's still not the position you wanted to be in, like ultimately. But um, it worked for me as a white belt. And then it says, so these two questions are kind of similar. Um, so I'll read both the questions and I'll kind of speak to the thing in general. It says you mentioned you never officially got your blue belt in BJJ. What do you think held you back from sticking with it long enough to earn it? Um, and then there was one. What's the hardest part about rolling with higher belts when you never officially got your blue belt? That's the thing. Like I went in there kind of with an advantage. Like I said, I wasn't the greatest wrestler ever. I was a 2-year JV high school wrestler. Though I was undefeated. Um, but I came in with a slight advantage. I didn't it was a relatively small town, I guess. I didn't run into it's not like it was Boston where there was like no, it was a class of 8 people max, and 10 people, and I was the only one with wrestling. Another guy had it too, but uh, so I would tap out. Like I tapped out every single belt color, and there's this thing where you like don't kiss and tell, and that's like a typical white belt mistake. But like I tapped out every single belt color, and I felt because I said I would compete and I never did, and I felt like I was being sandbagged. I felt like I was being sandbagged. I was in a gym where we rolled hard often, and people. I started seeing the elders in the gym breaking down physically and shit like that. And, I feel like I got out at a good time. And it was a little culty, and maybe that's just my bias of, anti-authoritarianism and, pro freedom and, march to the beat of my own drum, lone wolf, all that type of bullshit. Or maybe there was something to it. I mean, they definitely had enforcers. There was definitely stupid little rules about when to bow and asking permission to like leave the mat and shit like that. It's like, eh. Um, so yeah, so all those reasons right there are why I left, and it was disappointing because like I do think I should have at least been a blue belt. Um, but that is fine. Everybody wants to be a black belt. Um, it said from your boxing lessons, what's one thing you learned that instantly made you better at self defense? I mean, obviously, if you know how to punch, you're gonna be better at self defense, but that's offensive. Defensively, um, it's great to learn. It's great to be able to pattern recognize. And you learn like you can tell where a punch is gonna land when somebody throws it, or as they begin to throw it. So like before I started boxing, I would have some backyard uh, events with my homies, with my friends. Like we would like put on boxing gloves and we would like fight each other or whatever. And I would try to dodge the punch after the halfway mark. I would try to dodge the punch when it's already like visible, when it's already on its trajectory. And apparently, like a baseball, you just can't do that. You have to predict the trajectory. And that's what happens when you box. You start to realize, like, which angles punches can hit you from. You know what I mean? Based on like the rest of the body positioning. If somebody goes like this, they're throwing an uppercut. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't see my whole shit, but like if somebody goes like this, I know they're throwing a hook. If somebody goes like this, I'm like, all right, that's a right straight. You feel me? And so that's way better to block and dodge and counter if you can predict it like that, as opposed to waiting until it's in your face to be like, oh, like no, you don't got time for that. Do you think short stints in multiple martial arts are better or worse than sticking to one? I Better or worse? I mean, it's yeah, I think it's better. I mean, you know, jack of all trades, master of no, but like it depends on who you're gonna run into. Most people you could take out with just one, but like if you're talking about somebody who knows how to fight, then you want at least two. I, I guess the silver rule is that any self defense will help you against an untrained attacker. Um, and especially if you're a master at it. Bruce Lee says, I don't fear the man that's practiced 1,000 punches once. I fear the man who's practiced one punch 1,000 times. And I probably butchered that phrase, but that's the idea. And, but, you know, with that being said, that's the silver rule. The golden rule is that in fighting you need a stand up and you need a grappling. Like you need a stand up and a ground. Like you need to have one art form that you can defend yourself from your feet with, and one art form that you can defend yourself when things get tied up and or go to the ground with. So whether that's kickboxing for standing and judo for the ground, or if it's taekwondo for standing and jujitsu for the ground, or if it's American boxing for standing and wrestling for the ground. Um, it's recommended as the golden rule to have one of each. Um, it says, how would you recommend an average person avoid ending up like that KO in the viral fight? And we kind of talked about it. Situational awareness, avoid alcohol, drop the freaking ego, man. Like, somebody's like, I could kick your effing ass. Good, good, good for you, bro. Like, cool. Um, because it's like, it's dumb, bro. Like, you're not even like, it's not even like, more times than not, it's not even. I mean, there are some like dual. There are states that allow like fist fights, but both parties have to want a fist fight. It's stupid, man. Like it, so much shit can go wrong whether you win or you lose. Like you can break your wrist. You can, you know, kill somebody. Like lose some teeth, they lose teeth, like it's get arrested, like it's just so stupid, like um but yeah, chill on that ego, chill on the alcohol, learn some de-escalation stuff, um and like just live to fight another, like live to see another day. Like you don't know who has what on them and stuff like that. Just be friendly, stand your ground, you know what I mean? Like stand on your autonomy and let the clowns be the clowns. um I think that was if you had to pick one real world one. Oh, that was how would you recommend. Okay, so because it was two different sets of five questions, that's why I'm kind of going up and down. It wasn't like a list of 10, and I'm just trying not to like repeat myself too much for you guys. Um, so that number four was about the short stints in multiple martial arts, and this number one, if you had to pick one art for real world self defense, which of the ones would you choose? And I kind of spoke to that. I said, a little bit. You have to have. I, I mean, I'd feel naked with just one. You know, I think it's best to have two. I think Bruce Lee said it that um, it's funny. I referenced Bruce Lee last time, giving him the silver rule, but even he, based on something that he said, but even he agreed with the golden rule. Um, he said that something, I'm paraphrasing again, something to the extent that if a person had known, or if a person was had known or was proficient in American boxing and wrestling, he'd be done. They would destroy him as a Bruce Lee, as so he thought very highly of that combination. I think very highly of that combination. Though back then, though you could say Muay Thai. Muay Thai for standing, and because you use all your limbs. Muay Thai is great. You punch, you do all the punches that you would kind of do in boxing. You do kicks like you would do in kickboxing, and but you also do elbows and you do knees. And Muay Thai is a great stand up defense. Um, and wrestling and jujitsu, and yeah, I wouldn't pick one. What's the hardest you've ever been hit or submitted in training, and what did you learn from it? There was a time where one of the upper people pulled off like some sort of crank on a submission, and I could tell it was supposed to hurt, but it didn't. And there was actually like kind of shock on the people. But that's when I learned that there are enforcers in gyms that will try to put you in your place, so to speak. Um, how do you stay sharp now that you mostly hit the heavy bag as a hobby? Yeah, I mean, I have one of those grappling dummies that I can't pretend that I use, but if I wanted to, I could. I do hit the heavy bag occasionally. Do some shadow boxing and stuff like that, but more it's just trying to like just stay in shape in general, and I don't really focus. I don't. Martial arts has kind of fallen like way back into the back of my mind. Like I'll hit a heavy bag the way that I shoot a basketball, and for fun. And yeah, I just work out and stuff like that, and all that stuff is kind of really in the past for the most part. Um, do you think traditional arts like Taekwondo are still useful in today's world of MMA and fights? Hell yes. Hell yes. Joe Rogan said it about, I think, maybe more specifically, karate. You see Lyoto Machida have success with that. I saw some dude recently with some Taekwondo kicks. Yo, Taekwondo has the most ridiculous effing kicks ever invented in the history of humanity. Taekwondo was learned to kick humans off of horses. Taekwondo was learned to fight people who rode, to fight military men who rode on horses. You can kick somebody, I'm being facetious, but hyperbolic, but you can kick somebody's head off their shoulders. Like Taekwondo is so ridiculous. The speed that some of these kicking techniques hit you with, the velocity, the angles, and they got hands too. They got a nice little 1-2. You can throw really fast 1-2s. And then when you're learning all uh those sets, I always was like, what the hell are these sets for? Like, why are we ha who he who ha? Ooh, shit. Like they do all these things, and I'm always like, what? Why, bro? Why do we have to memorize these shits? But like, you start noticing yourself, like it's like Mr. Miyagi, wipe on, wipe off. Like you start noticing yourself blocking all kinds of shit. No, Taekwondo, if you can gear it, it just use it. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. I think Taekwondo is amazing for fighting and for self defense. It's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite things. You know. Um. Rogan talks about how he used to get his ass kicked by kickboxers going into it as a Taekwondo artist. Um. So you have to, but that's because he was fighting Taekwondo spars, right? It's knowing Taekwondo and knowing and adapting it for modern mixed martial artists. And that's MMA. If you're doing Taekwondo to an untrained person, get the hell out of here. You're kicking them in the chest and they're flying into a car. and you're spinning to set up that kick. It's ridiculous. Um, what's one mistake that you constantly see beginners make when they first start training? I don't. Um, would you ever compete in a tournament or amateur fight if the opportunity came up? I wanted to. I had the desire to. Um, at like 28, but at 35, I have the desire a lot less. Um, I, it's different if I'm like walking on the beach and I run into like a MMA tournament, street beef style. But to register for a tournament and to train for a tournament and to travel there and to the overstimulation of these events, and it's just right now it doesn't, there's a lot that goes into a small reward. What's the reward? Saying that I won a match in live 100% competition. Okay, you know I don't know. I've had tough sparring sessions. I've had a lot of tough, really intense sparring sessions, and those are suffice. Those live in my memory, those live in my heart. I don't feel like traveling to Boston for this huge freaking convention with humans everywhere just to prove to myself that I can do it at 100%, and cutting weight and paying the money and no, no. Like I said, sometimes I'm in the mood to like get into like a little scrap or something, but no, I'm not. I'm not doing that whole process just for a fight. Nah, absolutely not. Um. So on that note, I think that's a good amount of time. That brings us to 57 minutes and whatnot, and I pretty much covered all the things that I wanted to talk about. Um, and yeah, I could sit here and try to stretch this out to an hour, but I'm not gonna do that because that would be unnatural. And so I come to you guys with authenticity, and I'm gonna keep it that way. And thank you guys for being here. I hope you have a great week, a great great day, and then a great week. And I'll see you next week, God willing. Goodbye.